It's my favorite part of the show, money, power, politics. Tonight, Donald Trump's dollar diplomacy. Want to know what that means? Well, the president-elect has threatened the BRIC countries with 100% tariff if they stop using the dollar as their main currency for trade. BRICS, of course, stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and it now includes several other developing nations. Donald Trump's warning is just the latest proposal that has investors betting his economic agenda will likely disrupt global trade and accelerate inflation. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden's economy, well, it broke records this holiday weekend. The cost of Thanksgiving dinner was the lowest it has been in 5 years. Highways and airports were packed this weekend, and Black Friday sales almost hit $11 billion, and that is before we even got to Cyber Monday, which I can say I have fully been scammed by Cyber Monday. I woke up this morning, I bought a ton of stuff on sale that I wasn't even looking to purchase. So way to go, big box stores. You got me. Let's bring in Peter Spiegel, U.S. managing editor for the Financial Times, and Peter Goodman, global economics correspondent for the New York Times and author of How the World Ran Out of Everything Inside the Global Supply Chain. Mr. Spiegel, if people were saying that they were unhappy with Joe Biden's economy, how do you think they are going to feel if Donald Trump follows through with his economic agenda?
Yeah, well, look, we've talked about this before. You know, if inflation was the thing that brought down, well, Kamala Harris, brought down the Biden regime because of the people were so grumpy about it, these tariffs will be even more inflationary. And I know global trade is not something that is seen as sexy, and Peter and I were just lamenting this before.
It's sexy to you guys.
It's sexy to us.
It's back. Yeah.
But it's bad for growth, right? If the global economy, through tariffs, begins to slow down, that means growth in the U.S. slows down, which means jobs slow down. People start getting laid off. Their wages come down. It's going to have knock-on effects. And, you know, Harris tried to explain this during the campaign, rather ineffectually, I would argue. And we're in for, and you've started to see this now in the financial markets, right? Particularly, we talked before in the bond market. U.S. Treasuries, which is basically investors believing whether the U.S. government can pay its debt or not. You've seen, well, prices go down, yields go up, right? They are losing confidence.
That's big investors saying we are worried about what's going to happen here.
It's already happening. Just through the rhetoric, through the tweets, through everything like that, you've seen the market react. Wait till these actually become policies.
Okay, but there are folks out there, especially in Trump's camp, who say this tariff talk, this is just negotiating tactics. He's not really going to go through with it. He's going to scare people and they will come to the table. You've pointed out that people said the same thing about Brexit.
Right. That's right. I mean, I lived through Brexit. Actually, we both lived through Brexit, and that was a classic example.
Just so you know.
We were in London.
Okay.
Yeah, both of us were in London.
Everyone here and alive.
You know, that was a moment where people said, no, this can't happen. I mean, at the end of the day, no sovereign state is going to sever itself economically from its largest trading partner. And, of course, that is what happened, because once politics get tribal and people are thinking about taking back control or policing the border or whatever, a lot of terrible economic ideas get actually brought to creation. And it is reminiscent of that to be having this conversation. And we don't know if it's a negotiating position. We don't know if it'll really happen, though. You know, it's pretty hard to dismiss anything that Trump says. I mean, he did a lot of stuff he said he was going to do in the first administration. And the idea that we're going to have serious tariffs against the three largest trading partners simultaneously, that is very disturbing, because it's not just the finished goods. There are factories in the United States that all this policy is supposedly about, you know, helping realize a revival, right? We're supposed to be bringing jobs back to the United States. A lot of people work at factories in the United States that depend upon imported components from Canada.
Okay, but on the other hand, Donald Trump threatened to slap a 25% tariff on all goods from Mexico and Canada. And what happens? Justin Trudeau takes the next plane to Canada. He's having the surf and turf at Mar-a-Lago. It could be that I was in Canada over the weekend and he just wanted to get out of the country. But what do you make of that meeting?
I mean, look, it is, I mean, it's the last time around, right? It is U.S. policy by tweet, although it's on a different platform now.
Same.
It's the same thing. But, you know, the fact of the matter is, okay, maybe it works, but that's not normally how U.S. economic policy is done. We have, as the largest economy in the world, the most powerful military in the world, we have something that is called the public good. There is a general role the U.S. has played since the post-war era of establishing free trade, safe seas. Then it's the role the Americans have played in it. We have not been the bully. And you get back to this point where you make about the BRICS, this bullying of the BRICS on the dollar. In general,
yeah, but
people
Trump's
use
not
the
keeping
dollar.
that a secret. He's saying the status quo doesn't work. I'm here to bully. I'm here to change the game. And his supporters are saying we're here for it.
Yeah, okay, they are. But my point would be is if you start, threatening people with pulling the dollar and what's going to happen? They will go to the Chinese and say, we don't use the dollar anymore. Look what the Saudis have done with the Chinese on their oil. They said, you know what? Let's price it in renminbi, right? If you start bullying people, what they'll say is, you know what? The reason we invest in dollars is because the Americans have the world's interest. It's a safe haven. They have the world's interest. They play by the rules. They have courts. If they start bullying me, why am I playing with the Americans anymore? I'll go with someone else. I'll go with the euro. I'll go with the renminbi.
China has already, you're the supply chain expert. Yeah. China has said, we're going to fight your tariffs with supply chain warfare. Explain this.
China is in a position where they're in control of things like rare earths, lithium, electronic components that actually end up in the semiconductor supply chain. And if they want to withhold those things, if they want to weaponize their control of key ingredients, that is a new level of trade war. It's not just about, okay, you're going to hit us with tariffs on apparel we're sending to the United States. Well, we're going to slap tariffs on incoming soybeans and we're going to hit ag states. No, this is next level. This is we're actually going to cripple your capacity to make advanced products that we really need. And China is in a weird position on this next phase of the trade war, because on the one hand, they're much more susceptible to a slowdown in exports. And so that argues that the U.S. has greater leverage. On the other hand, they're dominant in emerging technologies like electric vehicles.
Hold on. I got a new topic for you that we have to hit.
Wow.
Because this is a story that people may have missed, but it's important. Because over the last couple of days, we saw the CEO of chipmaker Intel get forced out. If you are not in the business world, you're not focused on this, but I want you to explain to us why this is so important and what it has to do with the CHIPS Act, because Intel was given an enormous amount of money as part of the CHIPS Act, and one would think that their CEO would be riding high, and instead, he's riding the bus home.
So this falls on exactly what Peter was talking about. So there was a decision made that for the reasons Peter talked about, supply chains, we cannot rely on East Asia in particular, Taiwanese semiconductor providers.
We realized this during COVID.
We did this during COVID. So let's give incentives to American companies to build in the U.S. The criticism of these kinds of industrial policies has long been the federal government should not be in the business of picking winners. Right? That's always been the criticism. We criticize
Let the
French.
markets do it.
Let the markets do it. We criticize the French for their strategic yogurt, industry. And what has happened is the U.S. government has backed a loser. Intel has had problems for years now. NVIDIA has beaten them on the design of the chips. Taiwan Semiconductor has beat them on the making of the fabricating of the chips. They were the biggest lobbyists for this CHIPS Act, and it's a bipartisan.
Okay, so they were really good at lobbying and they were really bad at chip making?
Well, exactly.
They're good at finance. I mean, here's the part of the story that never gets told. So,
Tell
yes, they blew it. They didn't buy NVIDIA. They could have jumped into AI. They blew it in not getting a deal to supply iPhones with their chips.
Yes.
Where they really blew it is between 2005 and 2020, they funneled $108 billion into buying back their own shares. Investors loved it.
Okay, but that's what Intel did. Now the government has pumped all this money into this company, our taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Where's that money and what's to come of this chip manufacturing?
They're still building the plants outside Phoenix, Arizona, and Ohio and whatnot. The problem is there are no customers for these anymore. Why would you make your chips at Intel fabrication plants when you could do it at Taiwan Semiconductor and they're better at it? So now Intel has a new strategy. Should they sell that off? What Intel's mistake was is they were trying to compete with NVIDIA in design and compete with Taiwan Semiconductor on fabrication, and they were bad at both of them. And this is the problem. Again, I hate to sound like the Financial Times guy when it comes to government picking the winners, when the government decides how to organize an economy. If the markets do it, you get winners like NVIDIA, which is good old American company. So it's not like we're relying on foreigners for chip design. An American company did bold things and was successful. That's the way the market's supposed to work. We shouldn't have the federal government picking winners and forcing them to build plants at the taxpayer expense.
If Frank Rule were here, he would say, sounds like they needed a little better intel.